fact, today we are talking Nite with their third album, Cult of the Serpent Sun. You're quite new to this band, aren't you, Mike?
I'd never heard of it. I think you might have recommended them to me at one point, but I've never fucking heard of them. But like
Mm.
previous to that,
Yeah, I the album before I was really into Voices of the Cronian Moon came out in 22, I believe. Quite like heavy metal, but with kind of like black metal vocals almost. They're just quite they're not necessarily black metal, but they have that kind of like they're not traditional heavy metal vocals. But I was obsessed with that album. It was
really,
yeah, I loved it. I do think I tried to get you to listen to it a few times, and you weren't having any of it. So
I don't even think I did. I don't even think I checked it out.
really, well, I'd be quite keen to know how you stand on this album because all right, so Night are back.
Can I just say before we carry on, because I look fucking mental, right?
Oh
I look
yeah,
so
yeah.
red in the face, and
Let's explain what's going on.
well, I've moved, and my house is currently a building site, which I'm in at the moment, and I'm piggybacking off the hotspot on my phone. So if I go out at any point, that's why. But also, there's no light in here, so I've got like a fucking sight light facing directly at me, and I'm sat
Burning
in
into your
front.
retina.
Yeah, and I'm sat in front of a purple wall, so it's made all my clothes look purple for some reason. My face looks like fucking
Oompa
so red.
Loompa.
I know. Oh, yeah, I'm looking Oompa Loompa. Like an
You
Oompa
might be
Loompa,
getting a
also.
Do you
I
think you're
know, a
getting a
tan or
tan?
a boozy face. Some Alex Ferguson face.
It's bizarre how you do look purple. That is quite funny.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it when I saw it. I was like, what the fuck is this? But the thing is, I don't want to move at all because my internet, it seems to be okay at the moment. So I don't want to move a muscle.
All right. Well,
And I just did
let's
that in my
hope
head.
let's hope it holds out. Let's hope it holds out. Yeah. So Night are back with this is their third album, and it you can tell that their kind of sound has evolved. It still has that kind of heavy metal sound with the kind of like black metal vocalies, but
Vocalies.
vo- vocalies. The whole thing is just a bit more like realized. It's a bit more anthemic, a bit more kind of like it feels larger, if that makes sense. I think they've progressed in a more polished direction rather than kind of sticking to. Well, they've always been quite polished, but yeah. What's your take on this, Mike?
Well, I was going to ask you, how does that translate for you then in the way that progression has happened from the last album to this one? Is that a positive progression from the band, or is it have they gone in a way that you didn't want them to go to?
When I first listened to this, it did feel that way. Not to say that their previous record wasn't polished at all. Like they're such good songwriters, and like they just it was very well realized record. It's just this one does sound a bit more, for lack of a better word, more like a bit ghost like. You know
I
that
was
it's got
thinking
that.
this. Yeah.
Yeah, it's got that kind of big stadium sound. I'm not necessarily against it. When I first heard this record, it did take me a minute to sort of get adjust to the kind of more. I don't, see, saying mainstream is a bit harsh because I don't think it is that at all. But I mean, that opening riff on the first song is very, dare I say, cheesy, but it does work when you hear it in the context of the whole song.
Well, I felt that opening riff reminded me. It was quite grungy almost as well. Had a bit of like, it reminded me a
Yeah,
bit of like some '90s grunge sort of vibes. This, I mean, when we knew we were doing this album, we checked out. They did like a 3 song sort of teaser thing. I remember
yeah,
listening to that and thinking, I was bored to tears listening to that. It
really.
really didn't do anything for me. Um, I will say though, which this is weird though, to be bored by those 3 songs, but then as an album, I felt it worked a little bit better in longer form.
Yeah, and when we say longer form, I mean it's only 8 songs and it's only 36 minutes.
Great,
And I
great,
think
well
that's
done.
perfect
Yeah, yeah.
because bands like this could potentially hit an hour mark or go over, and there's no need. Like this is the perfect length of the kind of sound that they need. I think maybe it works so well because the vocals. Right, I want to know your thoughts on the vocals, right? Because they are very one note, aren't they? They
Mm.
don't fluctuate at all. Did that bother you at all?
Do you know what? Like, I didn't love them, but I didn't hate them either. Like, they kind of, I thought what he was doing with it added a flavor to the album. I mean, to be honest, if you describe this band to me on paper, like, I'd be so much more in than I actually was listening to this album. Like, if it was
Yeah,
like this is old school heavy metal with like a black metal type vocalist over the top, I'm picturing something like this, but different. Like, I'm picturing something a lot more rawer, maybe leaning more into that first wave black metal kind of thing, but with kind of more of a heavy metal thing, and that more heavy metal musically, and
yeah,
that would be something I'd be really into. But this, it kind of does it in a way that's not for me, if you know what I mean. It is that very much the high polish metal production. The vocals are, they've got that kind of black metal flavor, but they haven't really got the evilness of black metal. They've
no,
got like the grit. It's
yeah.
it's quite weird in a way.
They're
And it
almost
does
in a
work.
mid.
Yeah.
Well, they're almost in like a mid register, aren't they? They're not quite. They're not quite screams. They're not quite whispers. There's this
Yeah.
just weird in between, but there's almost something quite relaxing about them.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but it's a very nice like tonal sonically. It kind of like creates a nice kind of gruffness to the sound.
Well, it's strange because you almost, with this sort of thing, you would expect it to be, these kind of heavy metal riffs and then a really, like a real contrast, like harsh vocals to go with him. But he doesn't have that harshness to it.
No,
And it's quite unique in a way. And it does sit in the mix of it all really nicely. It all works.
yeah.
Um, and I have to say, like, I had a better time with this album than I thought I was going to. I thought it was quite fun overall.
Yeah, I was worried that you were going to really dislike it, based on your thoughts on the kind of
There
singles.
were elements of it and like quite a lot of parts of it that weren't quite for me, but not enough for me to really turn it off. I mean, I have to say, probably by the end of the album, I did get a little bit bored. Um, but I'd say, like, a decent amount of it, I was enjoying myself. I wasn't necessarily fully invested, but as like music on whilst I'm doing something, I didn't have a bad time at all with it.
No, I'm in the same kind of boat. Like I really enjoyed it. Like I did really enjoy it. But it's true. Towards the end, I was a little bit kind of bored's harsh, but there was something. I don't know. It did just sort of like end as well. The album didn't it? It wasn't like it didn't feel like an album closer. There was no kind of
No,
there was nothing that sort of like made you kind of there's nothing that made you like sit up and pay attention, if that makes sense. And I think a lot of that stuff was at the start of the album.
I feel like the album wasn't much. It wasn't much of like a journey. The album, it felt more like a collection of songs. Um,
Yeah,
it didn't feel like it had it. It was, the album was done with thought about the album as a whole. It was just, however many songs done for a record, basically. But having said that, there was some good songs on here. I thought maybe my favorite was probably track two, Skull. Uh,
yeah, same.
it was very much that sort of slightly higher energy heavy metal riffing. It reminded me of sort of Painkiller era Judas
Yeah,
Priest. Good harp, like guitar harmonies and stuff in there. It was just, that was a good song. I enjoyed that one. And as you said, it was probably a little bit front heavy because I thought the next song, Crow Fear the Night, was a good song as well. Really good vocal hooks in there. Um, and actually, and this was one of the songs that I didn't really like at the when I first listened to the three songs that came out, but liked it
yeah,
more within the album, was the Mystic. Um, I liked the intro. It kind of had that really, like, more fantasy sort of vibe to it. Um,
Well, just to touch on that, I think that is something they introduced a lot more into this sound.
mm,
They on their website it says their third full-length release, Cult of the Serpent Sun, Nite takes its sights off the stars and stares deep into the underground. Their latest salvo, with the Season of the Mist, explores the sinister world of fire-breathing demigods. I think they kind of went a bit more fantasy driven in maybe lyrically
yeah,
or tone, and it does sort of
yeah.
come through, doesn't it, in that sound?
I think so. Especially, I definitely noticed it on there as well. Although saying that, talking to, I mean, look, there was. I'm looking at my notes, and actually, most of the album I had a good time with. Like,
Yeah.
like the, I thought the Last Blade was cool, and I thought the Carry On was a good song as well. Not the Carry On, that's the band. Carry On was a good was a good song as well. I think it was them. It was the last two, Tama and Winds of Soka. I just lost interest at that point.
I think I enjoyed Tama. There was some moments in it that were quite Opeth. They had like a really cool
Mm,
chord progression, and some of the leads were very Opeth. And I think that song had moments of maybe their most black metal influence in it, on the musical side of the album, rather than just the vocals. But I agree with what you're saying on the last track. The last track didn't really do anything for me, and it the album just sort of ended, and then it went on to the, like, on Spotify, it just went on to the next album, and I was like, oh, like, is that it?
yeah.
It just felt a bit nondescript, but I think, like you said, I had a great time with it, and I think if you were just to listen to like individual songs, I don't know, eh, do you need the whole thing as an album to enjoy it more, or like? Because I think those songs at the start were really good, man. Cult of the Serpent Sun, I thought was a great song. Like you said, Skull, I agree. That was maybe my standout. And Crow and the Mystic, really cool.
Mm.
But then, yeah,
You know what? That's the first. If you bought it on record, that's side A.
yeah,
That'd be a
that's all you
strong.
need.
It'd be a
That's all you
strong
need.
side A, wouldn't it?
It would. It would. Okay.
I
Well,
Yeah, I don't have a great deal to say about this album. Like it is good fun, and I do. I think it's one of those that if you're into if you've got a taste for like more traditional heavy metal, then it's definitely worth a go. And even if you're not into black metal, I wouldn't let that put you off of what it's
no.
like vocally, because it's, you know, those vocals, they kind of got like a smoothness to them that
Yeah.
sort of fits in quite nicely. And it might almost be a gateway as well.
Do you think I mean, this is obviously like super, just not even relevant question, but do you think they would be more your taste if they had traditional heavy metal vocals?
No, I think actually the thing for me is
What's the production?
the production. I think if this was like a bit rawer, like the drums were maybe a bit more kind of like reverby and a bit more old. It was a bit more old school sounding as opposed
Yeah.
to
It was
being
very
very
produced,
modern.
wasn't it?
Yeah, it was modern, and I thought the production, it was just too modern for the sound that they were going for.
Yeah, they do have quite a clean aesthetic, which I I don't know. There's something about it that doesn't quite sit right with me. Like their artwork, right? It's a very it's I mean, we spoke about it on this channel before. Like when you're listening to something and you're looking at the artwork, if there's a disconnect there, it just sort of doesn't something doesn't feel right. And
Mm,
I get that with this.
yeah,
Um, but when you look at their Bandcamp, they've got this kind of like emblem on the side of each side. And it's like it basically looks like the Toto logo, but with like wings.
yeah, 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 yeah.
And when I was listening to it, I was like, that makes so much more sense visually. Like it would have been quite nice to see a bit more fantasy and like
Yeah.
injected into the artwork rather than what they kind of went with.
Yeah, man. I do think that that's the. I do think that they just for me, the production missed the mark. I think it could have been recorded in a way that was. Sorry, I'm just checking if there's any fucking
Go
ghosts in this place.
ghosts.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Um, I think it. I think it. That's the bit that missed the mark, and I feel like if the production was different in style, I think I could have really got on board with this.
Yeah. Do you think you'll go back to it at all?
Probably not. Probably not. But that's not saying it's not worth. I wouldn't recommend other people check it out, because I do think this is an album that I could, I think you could get on. People could get really into this, especially if you're into that more old school heavy metal stuff,
Yeah, for
you're not
sure.
kind of like have that sort of production snobbery that I do.
Yeah, yeah. That's a good take. I think one thing was apparent with my listens was it did get better with each listen. I found
Yeah, I found that
whether
too.
that's if you've got the time to invest and listen to this a few times, I think that you'll definitely enjoy it. Definitely for fans like if you like Ghost and more like modern old school heavy metal, this will definitely tickle you. But yeah, I don't really have much more to say on it. Leave it
No,
there,
I'm
Mike.
done. Yeah, well, yeah,
Yeah. All
yeah,
right. Well,
I'm done.
listen. Thanks for checking out the episode. Check out the album. Let us know what you think. Let us know in the comments. Like and subscribe. And we put out videos Wednesday and Friday for the latest metal releases. And we will catch you then.